What does he make of what you do and how you do it? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Patrick Dixon.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much. I want to look at a personal view of the future. I'm not expecting you to agree with everything I say. We each of us wear our own pairs of glasses through which we see the world, and mine are British, physician first, but now consulting to companies ranging from Hewlett-Packard, IBM, ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, BASF, and so on. So these are my glasses, and I'm going to give you a view. But before I do, as a physician, can I say something? I'm deeply worried about some of you in the audience who have your backs to me and are trying to look at the screen at the same time. There is a special medical condition called torticollis, which is when you have to go. So can I suggest that you actually turn your chairs right around so that I don't have to take some of you to the hospital in half an hour? Okay, so just please, you'll need it, because this vision of the future will take less than 22.5 minutes, and we will go all the way around the entire world of petrochemicals and back. And I promise you, sir, unless you turn around your chair, you will miss 3/4 of it. Thank you. Okay. Now, okay, we're ready. Now, I spell the word future, F-U-T-U-R-E. That spells the word future, and the first phase is fast to do with the speed of change. And I don't need to tell you what a challenge that is. The fact of the matter is that many things in your world are changing faster than you can book a meeting. Now, although you're laughing, in fact, I would suggest to you that this is one of your greatest challenges. That just about everything shifts in the world except a petrochemical plant. And just about everything else shifts in the world except petrochemical logistics. And I have been very struck by what is happening. Let me give you an example of how quickly my world changes. I spend most of my life looking at the outer edge of the radar screen here, not the middle. That's for business leaders, for chairmen of boards. No, I spend my time watching on their behalf what is happening on the outer edge. I spend my time looking at wildcards, low probability, but potentially very high impact events which come crashing into petrochemical strategy, which change your entire world, which in one moment destroy all of your margin. In every one of your businesses, there are over 300 or 400 such wild cards. Each of them has a risk of less than 1% to go off this year. But of course, if you have 300 or 400, that means that statistically, a big shipping company is likely to be hit by 1, 2, or 3 of them every single year on average. What do I mean? Well, here's an example of a wild card, except that this is one that the World Health Organization says is 100% inevitable at some point over the next 10 to 15 years. And I was talking to the person who is responsible for the World Health Organization bird flu strategy just 2 weeks ago. According to the American government, the Americans alone are expecting at some point up to 98 million cases of bird flu in this new form, which nature has not yet made. The issue is this: we can debate about what the death toll turns out to be, and we can debate about whether 2 billion people actually will get infected or not. But one thing is clear: when I've been polling executives around the world, I've seen this, that in the very earliest stages, up to half of all your people will stop going to work. Half of your truck drivers will stay home. Let me just give you an example. And by the way, this is even if we only have 20,000 cases ever in human history. Let me explain. Suppose in Shanghai, 3 weeks ago, there was the first 15 cases. The following day, we found another 15 in Hong Kong, and there was a report that maybe there were 300 in Beijing that we missed for a whole month. The following week, we're getting cases, 10 in New York, 15 in Frankfurt, and 5 in London. Of the London cases, 3 are doctors and 1 is a nurse. 2 of the doctors are dead within 1 week, and the patient recovers. In New York, we find that 3 hospitals are closed. The whole hospitals are closed because they have 3 or 4 patients each with bird flu. The whole hospitals are in quarantine. And the following week, it jumps from 200 cases to 2,500 suspected cases. We're now in the very, very earliest stages of a possible pandemic. And the week after that is this conference here, the EPCA conference here in Monaco. And 3 days before you go, the BBC is now reporting that we have cases in over 75 cities. There are now 1,300 suspected cases in London alone. And I want to ask you a question. Put your hands up if you would still have got on a plane and come here. Thank you. I've just shown you something that's really important. Because I want you to ask yourselves how many of your hauliers would have turned up to take their trucks across Europe yesterday morning. The answer is maybe 50%. That's why HSBC calculates that 135,000 people will stop going to work on week 3 or 4 or 5, even if it turns out to be nothing serious at all. So it's an example of a wild card, and it shows us this, that the future of the world is not about logic or even logistics. It's about emotion. It's about the reactions of human beings to global events. And this is important if we want to understand the future. And I'll give you an example of it. Here is a video which was produced to sell a game on TV, a TV ad. And it creates a great emotional reaction in those who were seen it. They thought it was wonderful, it was funny. But when they showed it on the TV in my country, the video was completely banned. It had to be taken off because there was such a huge reaction. I want you to look at the video and ask yourself, why? Okay. Well, I mean, you obviously thought it was funny, so what on earth is wrong with our country? I ask you, I mean, why is it that such a video would be taken off? I mean, it's crazy. I know that we are very strange people, but actually, you know what? It contains a truth. That life is speeding up. Put your hands up if you notice that Christmas Day came around a whole week earlier last year than the year before. Life is speeding up. Now, but so is our world in our flat economy. And I would argue that also your logistical environment is speeding up. And it's capital intensive, it's hard to move chemical production, but the manufacturing moves. We were just talking about the US situation just now, and the equivalent of this group in the United States. And the fact is that a whole factory, a huge assembly line, can move within a few weeks, really, to China. And then we have the old chemical supplier of that assembly line, who is still trying to ship the product back to where the new factory has gone, to follow the product and the manufacturing process. And then, of course, what happens? The global companies here move the chemical plant as well. So I'm asking myself, what kind of chemical industry will there be in the United States within 20 years? I'm asking myself what kind of European Union chemical industry there will be, especially when the margins are very low and falling, and when 10 euros a ton is wasted on stupid stuff, like sending product in lorries on a road, passing identical product in lorries on the other direction. Here's the question. We've seen, of course, growth of this particular industry in Europe by 4.5% over 5 years, which sounds wonderful. But you know that most of it is just imports moving around. Only 0.5% was actually real growth, maybe 1%. So what about other lessons we can learn from other industries? I'm particularly interested in Walmart, in the supply chain management in the retail sector. I'm interested in this always connected, total availability of knowledge, instant response, ultimate low-cost transmission of product. I'm interested in the RFID story, this techno-revolution, these 10 billion chips this year, which will be released into the environment, 10 billion personal computers, each the size of a grain of sand, as you know, each with software, hardware, microprocessors, able to read and write, needing no battery, because they suck the power out of the air. I'm interested in the fact that we will be using at least 100 billion of these devices every 12 months within the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years or 5. I'm interested that Walmart alone needs 10 billion tags just to tag the raw product moving around the world in big boxes. I'm interested in the warehouse efficiency savings of 40%. The loss of the theft reduction by 70%. I'm interested in the ways in which this is spreading through the airline industry, through shipping, through traditional logistics. Fast urban. Urban is about demographics, the mega city, and the fact that we have 1 billion children entering your environment in the next 15 years. It's the biggest shift in manufacturing demand for chemicals that we have ever seen in the world. I'm interested in the fact that, of course, most of this growth is happening in terms of consumers in only 2 countries, India and China, and the rest is in Africa. I'm interested in the way in which China will begin to source its own low-value bulk products locally within its own manufacturing processes. And I know that some people here think that you will go on surviving by sending highly specialized chemical products into China, despite the fact that it takes 3 weeks to get it there or more. And I wonder how long this will continue. In fact, can I ask for a show of hands? Put your hands up if you think this statement could be right, that within the next 10 or 15 years, China could start to match most people in this room on both price and quality and beat you on speed. Put your hands up if you think that statement could be right. Okay, it's at least half of you. Well, that should be worrying to us, especially if we are throwing money right down the drain on logistics. Now, if only this was the reality of fast roads, but of course within the EU, whether you are a Chinese person importing into EU or whether you're a British person making in the UK to go to France, we have a challenge. And yet I'm also impressed by the low cost of moving things around on the sea, and the fact that a Chinese exporter can get to any port in Europe for the same price, and for the same price can stop at 10 different places with their ship for almost no additional cost. I'm interested in, and we'll come back to this particular issue in a minute, of shipping. I'm also interested in the chaos there is in the road haulage sector. I'm shocked when I've discovered that only the largest road haulier has only 2% of the market. It doesn't surprise me to find that every person I've spoken to in the last 24 hours has told me, yes, it's true, the logistics problem is a nightmare. And as I say, carrying empty loads in one direction and a full load in the other makes no sense. And carrying the identical product both ways across the motorway also makes no sense. And whether we got 1.5 trillion tons of movements a year, congestion increasing and the rest, this is a big challenge. Fast urban tribal. Tribalism is the most powerful force in the world today. It's more powerful than atomic bombs or the entire military might of the United States Army, Russia, China and the rest. Tribalism is what makes me and you. Tribalism gives us culture, team, nationality, community, identity. The EU will be dominated by tribalism on the one hand, universalism on the other. We all want to be the same and we all want to be different. But within logistics, I see loads of tribalism, and tribalism reigns. I see crazy things where it's becoming quite difficult to persuade companies to actually work together. I'm seeing challenges in terms of collaboration, challenges in terms of creating product exchanges, challenges in terms of actually sorting out long-term shipping contracts, which would give all kinds of savings. Now, of course, I'm not saying that the petrochemical industry in Europe will die. That would be ridiculous. We know that low-value bulk product will always be sourced locally. We know there will always be just-in-time issues for other specialist product. We know that. But I'm asking about the longer-term trend, the bigger future. And and I'm asking about some of these practices which I suggest to anyone outside of the petrochemical industry, they look last century, they look restrictive. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. We have 15 chemical companies represented here who, between you, own 98% of all the chemical tons moved in the European Union. The other 4,300 do a little bit. I'm interested in your view. How many do you think we will have? Will it still be 15 big ones, or will it be less? Put your hands up if you think it'll be significantly less than 15 big companies in the next 15 years. If you think there will be a big consolidation, significant consolidation amongst these 15 in the next 15 years, put your hands up. Now put your hands up if you think we will see less than 10 large players within 15 years. Put your hands up. Okay. Now, obviously there are issues here, but actually some of these logistical challenges might become a little simpler, it seems to me, if there were fewer players. And certainly we've got chaos with 4,000 extremely differentiated tiny companies. And chemical products, I would suggest, are going to become even more commodities than they are, with global pricing, global integration into complex processes, and liquidity, of course, will remain a challenge. I'm interested in the fact that, of just comparing, we were just talking about this just now, the US prices and the EU prices for moving the identical product, 3,000 kilometers, is ridiculously different. In fact, 300 kilometers is different. You do it in the US for $12 a ton less than we do it in the EU. I still can't quite understand all the reasons why. Something is to do with railways, but something is to do with air. It seems the Americans actually make the raw product, they deliver it somewhere, and they leave as late as possible the final manufacturing process. We in the European Union, we deliver product 1,000 kilometers, and then we convert it into air, bottles of plastic. And then we drive those bottles of plastic 2,000 kilometers to go fill them up with water. And then we move the bottles themselves all over the world. Now, I'm just saying, it just looks odd from the outside perspective. It looks messy. And you start to worry about hubs and spokes, because in this room there are tremendous good news stories. There are people, in fact, our panelists will react all over the place, no doubt, and say, Patrick, what kind of planet do you live on? Do you know nothing about BASF? Do you know nothing about my shipping company? We have state-of-the-art this, we have state-of-the-art that, we have learned the lessons from Walmart, we have completely revolutionized our supply chain management. But the rest of you are very quiet at the moment. And I think there are issues. Issues about transparent pricing, issues about shared transport, issues about return loading, issues about product exchange. Over dinner last night, you'll get to hear one of the panelists talk about product exchange within the EU. His own calculations, I think, are that it could save $35 million a year out of the industry at very little cost. The product exchange we calculated would cost the salaries of 8 people a year. I think we worked out 8 personal computers we would also allow, and 8 mobile phones, and that would be about it. And that entire thing could save the industry not just $35 million, but save the environment 100 million kilometers less truck driving every year. That's 1 billion kilometers of traffic in the EU over the next 10 years, which is enough to make any politician sit up and take notice. And we came to the conclusion that such a product exchange could be agreed today inside this room. It would require the presence of less than 15 key men or women to make a collective decision to actually do it. Just do it. And it costs nothing. Well, when you see things like that, which cost nothing, which we could decide over breakfast this morning, as I say, to me, it looks a little strange. And then we have the challenge of low-cost shipping. And we have here one of the world's biggest hauliers in terms of shipping containers who will be taking part in our panel. And I'm delighted to have had the privilege of talking to him about the incredible efficiency of water transport. And the fact that it costs him, it costs you more to move a container 120 kilometers than to move it from my home in London to China, apart from getting it to the port. Now, to most people outside, you of course know this, but to those outside the chemical industry, this raises a huge question for me, especially when I understand that 50% of all the containers on his ships are empty when they go back from the UK to China. And this is an incredible opportunity for logistics. Another great challenge is the fact that for him, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, for him, he never knows more than 15% of his capacity will be more than about 12 weeks ahead. Why? Because none of you guys here can commit. Because you can't commit, he cannot build your infrastructure. So he has 85% free capacity for the foreseeable future, which is crazy, since most of you will be using ships like that, and you have some idea about minimum use of that logistical channel over the next 5 years or even 12 months, and yet he cannot plan because no one is doing the deal. Why are they not doing the deal? Because you say, well, you just buy it like an airline ticket when you need it. Yes, okay, but it's very inefficient. Because with shipping, it is like an airline, actually. With bulk purchasing, we are getting tremendous savings. So I'm not seeing this, the equivalent of the budget holiday operators and consolidators operating in the shipping area in the same way as we see them in the travel industry. Strange. It's exactly the same process. What I am seeing is some people starting to do clever things. I am seeing in my country 1/3 of all our plastic bottles, all your old stuff here from today in my country, 1/3 of all the cardboard, 1/3 of all the plastic on your table will go to China, perhaps in one of his containers. Why? Because it's so cheap. It's cheaper to send it to China for rubbish to go to China, to be sorted and turned into new product, than it is to recycle it here. Why? Because this is part of this strange, crazy, not joined up, chaotic transport world. The only reason we are doing this is because the chemical industry and other industries have not yet worked out their deals. And because no one else is working out the deals, we have this stupid situation where it is better to send rubbish than to send nothing. So, fast, urban, tribal, universal, radical. This is about single-issue activism and the death of politics. The political argument today is no longer in parties. Let me prove it. Put your hands up if you have paid money in the last 3 years to belong to a political party. I'm the only one. 1, 2, 3. Put your hands, now wait for it. I want you to put your hands in the air if you have ever, in the last 3 years, you have signed a petition or you've sent an email protesting about the tram that is going to be driving past your house, or whether you joined some kind of campaigning group on any issue whatsoever, whether you belong to the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds in the UK or whatever it is. Put your hands up if you have ever been involved in any kind of single issue. Put your hands up. Okay. So politics is dead within EPCA, but single issue passion is very much alive. And that is the situation outside your companies too. Most of the pressure, almost all the pressure on you to change, indeed to pressure to change on logistics, is going to come from activist groups, small numbers of people with huge passion and commitment, not from politicians. The politicians will follow, but they don't drive it. But the lesson of history is that every regulation comes from a single issue, eventually. That's the lesson of the European Union anyway. So when we look at single issue activism, we see the future of your industry. And there's one big single issue which will drive many, many hundreds and thousands of other single issues. All of them will impact you, and the issue is sustainability. Now, we can tease out what that actually means in terms of the environment, in terms of water supply, in terms of everything. But I just want to draw your attention to just the one big one. Remember, my friends, I said the future is not about science. The future is about emotion. We had a great debate last night about whether global warming is actually connected in any way whatsoever to human activity. And you know what? It's irrelevant. I don't care what you think or what I think. The only thing that matters to your industry is what does the rest of the community think. Because if the rest of the community starts to make a connection in their minds between the possible destruction of our planet through global warming and your activity through the stupid use of trucks going past each other carrying identical product, then you come under pressure. And I think that there will be hundreds of examples of this in terms of carbon use, energy use, and the rest. And it will be very, very difficult to resist demand for change. We have seen nothing yet. We are in the very first hour of the first day of the global warming debate. The United States is busy shifting policy at the moment, faster than George Bush would acknowledge. California has already switched, New York has already gone, and Al Gore is doing his best. I flew here on water power, by the way. My jet was water powered, and my computer is running on solar. My meal last night was cooked with wind power. Why? Because my company made a calculation about my ecological footprint. And I worked out that I would have to spend myself, to offset all my flying, quite a lot of money to invest in hydroelectric plant in New Zealand to buy me personally a carbon credit, which costs about 12 euros per tonne. It's not very much. Fast, urban, tribal, universal, radical. How do we live in this crazy world? The answer is we need ethics and values. And in a way, that's what we've been talking about all along, but I just want to leave with you with one final point. We know that an industry, at the end of the day, is only as good as your products and processes, and we know that they can be copied quickly by people with no brain. So we know, therefore, that the real competitive advantage inside every one of your organizations comes not from products, not from chemicals, not from logistics, but actually from people. And it's the people that make the difference. And we know from studies that EPCA have been doing that in logistics there is a real challenge at the moment in terms of attracting people. I teach at London Business School, and it is rare to find someone who's doing an MBA and you ask them what they want to do at the end, and they say, oh, I'm going to go into logistics. They just don't do it. They say they'll go into marketing, they'll go into sales, they'll even go into research and development, they'll go into engineering, but they don't go into logistics. And if they say to their friends at a party, oh, what do you do? Say, I do logistics. Oh. And the conversation changes as if they said they came from the sewage department. Okay. Now, I can see some of you also feel the same. Okay. Now, so it seems to me that we have to not only change the image, but help people to understand what it's all about. And the problem is that while companies talk about growth, profits, and shareholder value, we don't do ourselves any favors. Because I don't know people who get out of bed. I do not know people who get out of bed and say, thank God I'm alive today. With all of my logistics planning, I can make more shareholder value and bottom line profit. And I'm trying to write another book, and it's a study of people who get out of bed to make shareholder value and bottom line profit. I've been asking for nominations, and I have had one name so far. I would like you to help me. Can you put your hands in the air if you know someone personally who gets out of bed in the morning and says, thank God I'm alive to make more shareholder value and bottom line profit. This is the reason I go to work, is to make my Excel spreadsheet numbers. Put your hands up. Oh, thank you very much. There's one over there. Please give them a round of applause. Okay. Okay, I need the name, sir. I really do. I'm struggling. I have to complete this book in the next 8 weeks. I have only one person to study in the whole world. I've been carrying on this survey for the last 5 years. I was hoping that at least I would find some here. So what is it that you do get out of bed for? You see, most of us talk about we have to do logistics to improve return on equity. Nonsense. Well, it may be true, but it's not going to get anyone to do anything inside your organization. It doesn't motivate you, and it doesn't motivate them. So if we are going to help logistics to happen, I suggest to you we have to find a way to connect with the passions people have, which are bigger than that, and their passions for other things. So let me show you their passions for themselves, but their passions for something else as well. Put your hands up if in the last year you have had a personal conversation with a friend or a family member about how to find a better kind of balance between these different parts of life, work, home, children, everything. Put your hands up if you had a conversation about work-life balance. Have a look around. Now you're laughing again because I'm touching realities. Just like the video showed the speed of change, it is a picture of your life. And for me as a physician, I find that interesting. And what is interesting is this. Work-life balance is now #1 or #2 career priority for everyone who wants to work in logistics. Why? Because it's #1 or #2 career priority for everyone who comes out of Harvard, London Business School, the London School of Economics, or anything else. MBAs, all these senior executives that you need are motivated because they want to be successful, yes, but they also want to have a life. Which means that actually we need to be advertising, come to us to get a better work-life balance, come to Agility for a work-life balance and stimulating life and a good pay package and a good team. The other issue is community. It's surprising, perhaps shocking, how many people actually give time to things they really believe in for nothing. Let me again show it to you. Wait for it. I'd like you to put your hands up if in the last 2 years or 3 years you have given time to something that you were not paid to do, you didn't have to do, but you wanted to do. It could be that you shook a tin for the tsunami disaster. It could be that you helped out at your children's school. It might be that you did the accounts of a small not-for-profit organization for AIDS orphans. It might be that you helped walk the neighbor's dog on a weekly basis because she is 90 years old and she's sick. Whatever it is, it might be that you help out in the local church, as I do, or in a synagogue or a mosque, whatever it is. But if you have given time to things that you really believe in the last 2 years, now is the time to put up your hands. Have a look around. My goodness, you see passion. And I will learn more about Rick. I'm not going to ask you, don't worry. I will learn more about Rick. You as a whole table here will learn more about Rick, I guarantee, in 3 minutes by asking him 2 questions than you will learn in 30 years working with him in NPRA. And the 2 questions are this. I'm not going to ask you, but what is it that you do, you give time to, and what's the story? Why this organization? Why this person? And out will come something which is so personal, it may even bring tears to your eyes or to him, because you will touch his passion, and you will understand what he will be doing long after he has retired. You will understand what his children may also be committed to as well, because these stories often go deep. Now, my friends, this passion is in this room, and it's a passion for community. That's why you give time, and some of you don't give time because you haven't got time at the moment, so you outsource it, and you make a donation, and someone else gives the time. I have one final question, and then I'm finished. I want you to put your hands in the air if in the last year you've had a passionate conversation about the war in Iraq in one way or another. The war in Iraq has troubled you in some way, and you've had a strong conversation with someone about what should happen next. Put your hands up now. Now, put your hands up if you know someone personally who lives in Iraq or is fighting in Iraq or connected personally in Iraq in that way. For the rest of you, it's none of your business. It's nothing to do with you, but you are passionate about it. And my friends, this is the secret of understanding the passions in terms of connecting with your mission, understanding the future destiny of your business, the pressure you will come under in the chemical industry, and also how to attract the best talent. Because, my friends, you have shown me that within this community, there is huge passion for yourselves, yes, for the wage packet and the rest. But there is a huge commitment to family and relationships, which is really important, not just to you, but to your shareholders, to everyone who works for you, for your shippers, your hauliers, and for everyone who criticizes you in the media when they do. There's a passion about family and work-life balance. There's a passion about community and improving things in the area where you live, which is what the volunteering is about. And finally, my friends, there's a broader passion, a crazy, irrational passion, to connect with things which are nothing even to do with us, who will not touch our personal lives, but are something to do with tomorrow's world for the whole of humankind. And that includes things like environment. Now, these passions touch us in different ways, but there is passion here in this room. And I said the future will be about that. The future is about emotion. And when you can connect logistics with a good news story about building a better world, then you will win the war for talent. When you start talking to individuals and you say, listen, this is not just, my friends, about bottom line profit and return on equity. Logistics is a moral issue. It is an ethical question, which is whether it is right to use up 100 million kilometers of road space every year for no reason whatsoever. That's a moral question. And your job, sir, as our new person heading up logistics, is to find a moral answer. An answer which works for our shareholders, but also for our customers. It works for the men and women and the children who live in the streets where we drive our trucks. It works for the health and safety of people who otherwise get killed when these trucks collide and they spew toxic waste. It works for the environment in general, and it will help the whole of humankind. And my friends, I believe that this theme of building a better world is an inescapable one for us in the petrochemical industry. And you will find that every argument on health and safety, environment, cost, benefit, and the rest will come back down to this. Is this the best way to use the limited resources that we have? Or can we find a better way, which is also just as profitable and helps us all to feel that the future will be a better place to live in? Now, I'm passionate about what you do because my life also depends on chemicals every day. I couldn't live without it, whether it's the dyes that go into bleaching a shirt, or whether it's the product that went into creating this tie, whether it's the plastics that's in my glasses, or the solvent that I use to clean my car. So I'm totally committed to chemicals, and I feel passionately that the chemical industry has had a difficult time justifying why it's necessary to have a chemical industry for a better world. We need to explain to people that our future, our prosperous, safe, healthy and dependable future depends on an effective, efficient chemical industry that is cautious and careful about resources, that has effective logistics, as a good employer and has a great future. So in summary, the European chemical industry needs to reform in order to prevent major decline. The solutions are complex. The supply chain is often old-fashioned, restrictive and lacks innovation. I believe there's a major opportunity to reduce costs and to improve customer service by radical changes to supply chain, but this will require industry-wide cooperation within this room in partnership with government. Thank you very much.